Welcome to the Soundtrap Education Summit, a free online event dedicated to empowering and amplifying student voice with the theme, Their Voice, Their World. We're bringing you inspiring and practical messages from musicians, educators, podcasters, students, and more that can help you make change in your classroom right away. I'm Matt Miller, author of Ditch That Textbook and moderator of the summit. Our sponsor and host of the summit is Soundtrap, a collaborative and creative audio editing platform. Soundtrap for Education empowers students and teachers to explore creative sound recording in all subjects, for all ages, and at all ability levels. And you can sign up for their free online course to learn how to bring music and podcasting to your classroom at academy.soundtrap.com. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about something that is near and dear to my heart, and I think can make a big difference in the lives and the academic work of your students. And that is public speaking. Now, when we talk about speaking, this doesn't just have to be standing up in front of, to a podium in front of a great big audience, but there are some of those skills that we can use in our oral communication that can help our voices have more weight. And that's really what we're talking about in this summit anyway, isn't it? Is empowering student voices. And so when we're talking about empowering student voices, these two ladies right here have done a whole bunch of it with the students that they've served and with other people. And so I am super excited to introduce Tatiana and Tara to you. So first of all, thank you both so much for joining us. And let's do some quick introductions. So Tatiana, do you want to take it first? Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. I am a teacher at heart, a creative public speaking professor right now as an adjunct. I am an interactive leadership trainer, and I am a photo and video storyteller as well. I love my students. I love teaching, and this is one of the great honors of my life, is to be able to have influence in the lives of college minds.
Excellent. Excellent. Very good. And Tara, how about you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Tara Skiba. I am a high school English teacher at Hackensack High School in New Jersey. I teach a course called Exploring Sports Literature, and one of my favorite courses is called Careers in Education, where I have the opportunity to inspire the future generation of teachers. In addition, at Hackensack High School, I also created a speech communication course. With that, I took the opportunity to teach at Rutgers University, where I am also an adjunct professor, teaching public speaking online and in person.
Excellent. Very, very good. Okay. So in some ways, public speaking is kind of the thread that, flows through this entire session. And so, we'll probably kind of come back to that to some degree. But I was wondering for the both of you, when it comes to public speaking and speaking skills and all of that, I don't know if it's the same with you as it is for me, but as I have learned more about oral communication, some of those best practices to get your ideas across effectively and clearly and everything, it has kind of changed the way that I communicate everywhere. And it's really kind of changed the way that I think and the way that I carry myself and everything. And I just wondered if you could, if you both could touch just briefly on the power of all of this stuff, maybe how it's shown up in your lives and in your students' lives and all of that. I wondered if, Tara, if you wanted to maybe take that one first.
Sure, absolutely. So for myself, public speaking is really important because I allow myself to just be myself. It's my opportunity to connect to others. It's the reason why I'm here with both of you today. And for my students, it's really important for my students to use their voices. As I mentioned earlier, I did create a speech communication class several years ago at the high school to give the students the opportunity to use their voices, not only for formal presentations, but also for social interactions in a variety of different group settings.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Excellent. Tatiana, how about you?
When I think about the power of our voice, the bottom line message that I want to share with all of my students and anyone that listens to me is that your voice matters. That's constantly the message I come back to over and over again. And I can recall these moments in my life, even being 7 years old. We moved to a different country back and forth. And I remember being asked to speak in front of the entire school and share about my experience living in another country. And then in middle school, being asked to deliver a speech to an entire group. So speaking has been an important part of the way that I've been able to be seen, to be heard. And I think that that's very similar for college students. I think it's Oprah Winfrey that talks about, as people, we need three things. We need to know that we're heard, that we're understood, and that we're valued. Did you see me? Did you hear me? And did what I say matter to you? I think those are those three things. And to me, that I've taught that in my leadership course, and because I fundamentally believe that, and it's so intrinsically linked to our ability to speak, to communicate. And your question was, how do these skills of communication show up in my life? I mean, every day, it's important part of how I communicate. And it's not just in settings where, okay, I'm speaking to this big crowd, or I'm teaching a class online or a webinar. It actually shows up when we're running the day-to-day things in our lives, or we need to speak up about something that's not right, or we have a disagreement and we need to be able to respectfully share how we feel and not stay silent about it and swallow the discomfort. Even in our relationships and in tiny little things like, let's make a decision where we're going to go to have dinner today as a group. So the communication skills shows, and even in convincing somebody to go out on a date. I mean, I always say that's persuasive speaking right there, is having somebody agree to come out with you. So it shows up in every single area of our life. And I think there's another element to it now too, with it's not just verbal speaking anymore. It's a lot in writing too, because we communicate so much through the internet, through so many social channels, that our voice isn't just what we hear anymore. It's also what we write. So those two things, I think, are linked, and it shows up everywhere that we look today.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to hear, I'd love to hear kind of some examples of where this has shown up in your lives, just so we can kind of get to know your own backstories a little bit. I know, for me, I'll kind of just start very briefly. Coming out of college, I went into the classroom and I started teaching, and I was still pretty shy and uncertain of myself. And being in front of students and showing up every single day and having to have command of that classroom to some extent, and trying to communicate effectively, it was kind of like trial by fire to some extent, on the job training. And I learned a lot about myself and really came into my own, because I got up every single day, 6 class periods a day, 180 days a year, and learned the lessons on the job, So I wondered if you both had any moments like that you could share with us, where, for you at least, you really started to see the power of your voice. And Tatiana, maybe I'll throw this one right back over to you. Do you have anything that comes to mind when it comes to that?
So many things come to mind, Matt. So I'm going to try to filter through all the memories. And I mentioned the time in middle school where I had to deliver a speech to an entire school. That was one of the first moments where I'd actually prepared a message that was delivered. And I remember rehearsing, writing, rewriting, delivering. So that was a key moment for me. And at the time, I had a teacher in my life who believed that my voice was powerful. I don't remember how I felt on my own before she encouraged me, but I know that having the backing of a VIP in my life, which is a teacher, encouraging me and pushing me. Even Tony Robbins didn't realize his potential until I think it was his English teacher or one of his high school teachers encouraged him. So as teachers, we have so much power and influence over our students. And then every job that I had, every part of my education, I loved delivering presentations and speeches. And I remember feeling so much for the people who would get so embarrassed or overwhelmed and disliked it. I wanted to help them. I would come to those students and offer to help them in whatever way that I could to feel more comfortable speaking, because I had gotten totally comfortable with the discomfort of it, because I knew that the message I had to share was more important. And then most recently, just like you said, Matt, day in and day out, you go in, you get ready, you deliver a message, and that strengthens your confidence, strengthens your skills. It's the same for me teaching at the university level, having taught a leadership course, now teaching public speaking as well. And doing the corporate training, finding out that when you speak, people are listening and that what you say matters to them. And the way that I know is because people will come back and say, it really resonated what you said, or they'll write to me. So to know that what's coming out of here and here is going out and actually is touching people in some way that's helping them work through an issue, gain more confidence, believe in themselves. That is the way that it manifests in my life. And, even when I say that, like I have an emotional reaction to it because it's so real and it's so powerful. So I love that piece of what I do.
You can hear it in your voice, and I know I can feel that for myself too, because I think about that where it's just like what you said. Whenever you realize that what you are saying, I love how you said that what comes out of here and what comes out of here, is showing up in somebody's heart and is making a difference, and you start to think, oh my goodness, like first of all, for me, it's like this is part of what I was put on this earth to do, and second of all, your voice has power. Again, that comes right back to the theme of this entire summit, is that your voice has power. And what's fantastic about the summit, I just got to gush for just a second, is that we get to hear from people who use music to do that, songwriting to do that, spoken words, just all of these different ways. And this is yet another way to amplify those voices. So I'm so glad that you shared that. Tara, how about you? Someplace where you started to realize the importance and the power of your voice.
Absolutely. So similar to you, as soon as I graduated college, I became a teacher. And one of my professional goals was to be a coach. I always wanted to walk down the hallways and hear the students say, hey, coach. And so one day, I was 21 or 22 years old. I walked into the athletic director's office and I said, I want to coach soccer. It was short, it was simple, and it was game changing, literally and figuratively. And so I became an assistant coach that first year. And then I was a head varsity soccer coach for several years after that. In addition, at the high school, I also always emphasize to my students to create their own opportunities. And I do that by way of example. So for example, I know I mentioned the speech communication class. I also created a course for graphic novels. I created a sports literature class. And the idea was to create courses that not only fulfilled some interest of my own, but to connect to the students, which of course is the most important thing. I wanted to create English classes that really spoke to the students, where they had the opportunity to use their voice, where they were able to see themselves in the literature and really connect to the texts. So using my voice has provided me wonderful educational opportunities in the high school. And then at the college, when I wanted to become a college professor, I emailed a couple different colleges and universities. And I was honest, I never had experience. I never taught a public speaking course, but I said I created courses for public speaking in a high school, and I attended Rutgers University, and I would love to be a part of this community. And so just by sharing that one email and then having the interview and having the opportunities to continue to speak and to teach have been really fulfilling and rewarding. And that all comes from just having the confidence to speak up and to say, this is an opportunity that I really want. Can we make this happen?
That's awesome. Yeah. And, I think we've all got those moments where, something big happens or we get one of those opportunities and it kind of changes us. And it sounds like that's very much what happened with you. That's awesome. That's a great story. So let's start to shift this just a little bit to, some of those practical applications, some of those ways that we can help educators to empower their students and their voices. And I know, whenever we ask students to do this, or when we give them opportunities, to amplify their voices, this could come in a variety of different ways. If you're a music educator, then you're amplifying their voice by, maybe the way that they use their instruments, or they sing, or they create music. If you're in a classroom setting, it could be through, a podcast or some sort of audio recording, or really it could just be, through a speech or through your regular daily communication. And I think, there are all of these strategies and best practices and tips that we can give students and really adults too, to give them these practices that they can use so that those important messages and those important ideas can be heard, so they can help make that change, because that's really what all of our communication is about, is creating some form of change in some way, shape, or form. And so I wanted to just kind of kick it, and I know this is going to be kind of a general question, but what are some of those things that students can do, or even, teachers and adults can do, to help their voice come across clearly and to come across with as much, power and impact as possible? So, Tatiana, let me kick that one over to you and see, what are some of your ideas on this?
Yes, and before I can give you those practical things, there's something that's not as practical but essential. And these are the way that I start my classes and conversations, is we need to address fear and beliefs first
Oh,
before
that's
we
good.
do anything practical. The very first class is all about fear. And I think it's Yoda that says, named must your fear be, before banish it you can. So I have to help my students give those fears names. What is
Mhm.
it that I'm afraid of? And I think it's Marie Curie that says, nothing in life is to be feared, only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so that we may fear less. So I share this kind of
Mm.
messaging with the students, and then I have them do it in a way where I'm not having them all proclaim their biggest, deepest, darkest secrets and fears. Of course, that's not appropriate, especially not for the first day of class. Nobody would probably register for my class ever again. But we do it in a way where it's gentle, it's open, it's authentic, and people realize what I fear is exactly the same thing that everybody else is fearing too. And what is that fear? Every single one of us, because we're human beings, we fear being judged. At the end of the day, that's the bottom line. All of us are afraid to be judged by others negatively. And those fears may sound like, I don't want to sound dumb. I don't want to sound stupid. I don't want to make a mistake. What if I lose my place? What if I freeze up? What if? But at the end of the day, it all comes back to this fear of being judged. And the faster everybody can see that everybody else feels the same way, the less power that has over us, because we realize we're not alone. Because, of course, one of the biggest, I think, lies in our lives as people is that we're the only ones that feel this thing. And it's just not true. So for me, starting with fear is step one. And then we talk about the beliefs. And I have students do an activity where I ask them to create an audio recording. And I know this conversation is all about the power of audio, the power of voice. So I'll run an assignment with them where they're finishing this sentence. I first have them make a meme so that we can get creative and kind of have a laugh about the things that we fear about public speaking. So they'll create an original meme about their fears. And then into that meme, they'll record a 1-minute audio finishing the sentence. When I think about my voice, and then they continue. And I'll share a couple of the things that my students have said. It's mixed. I feel nervous. Sometimes I feel strong and confident in others. I fear that others will know when I'm nervous. I get shaky. It sounds like I'm inexperienced, unconfident. I use a lot of filler words. I've always struggled. I feel judged. Wonder what my voice sounds like to others. I hope my voice isn't annoying to others. It makes me so nervous when everyone is looking at me. I don't know what they're thinking. Are they noticing my mistakes? I don't sound professional enough. My accent might be viewed a different way. I was raised in a household with multiple languages. I'm nervous about the way that I sound. I turn away when a teacher asks for a volunteer to present. And remember, this may sound really familiar to K through 12 teachers too. These are college students' responses. My voice is powerful and it gives me the opportunity to change the world. So every now and again, I'll have a student who actually has a strong positive belief about their voice too. But the list goes on and on about all the different fears and being self-conscious, but their feedback about sharing this, and we just did this week because it's just the start of the semester, is that it was great to hear what everybody else is thinking too. And that having this being done in a creative way through the meme and the audio comment only focusing on the voice it really resonates with students to be able to express themselves this way. So that's the way I start before I go into practical steps.
I am so glad that you brought this up. This is so good. It's very much like me to want to jump right into the, okay, now what are we going to do without addressing some of this crucial foundational stuff. And this is so true. I think, since we're talking about, their voice, their world, what are ways that students can use their voice and amplify their voice? That is one of the crucial things that everybody deals with. I think whether they are, like you said, college students or K-12 students or adults or whatever, is that we do have those fears of being judged and we have those beliefs, and we've got to be able to name them and address them, or otherwise they just kind of become the elephant in the room and we don't deal with it, and they can kind of like, come back and haunt us through everything that we're doing. And Tara, I wanted to kick this over to you as well. As far as addressing those fears, I wondered if you had anything else to add about that, any more thoughts about that yourself?
So it's natural for everyone to fear public speaking. My first class usually has all of the students standing in one big circle. So if we're all standing together, there's no one in the front of the room. There's no one in the back of the room. And so we're standing as a team. And as a team, we are united and we're having conversations. Another thing that we do is the next step is we do group speeches. So you're not up there by yourself. A couple people are up there and we're doing impromptu speeches and we're having fun and we're doing different kinds of skits. And then the next activity is a partner activity. So if you see where we're going, first we start whole group, then we go to about 4 people and then 2 people. And then eventually that builds to the opportunity to present on your own. With that being said, I like the first speech to be something that's not necessarily just about yourself, because to address any fears that we might have about public speaking, sometimes we're fearful of the content or people judging what we're going to say. What I like to do is allow the students the opportunity to read a children's book. This way, they're able to connect to their audience while reading someone else's words. So they're practicing how to articulate, how to sit in front of the class in front of everyone, or how to stand, or how to walk around the room. So they're not worried so much about their words because they are speaking someone else's words. So again, it's the idea of being a team and then working down to the individual speech to build the confidence.
That's fantastic. That's really good. I remember reading somewhere, I think, where with children, sometimes if they're able to speak for a character or speak for someone else, then it isn't so personal and they're able to communicate what they need to say, but it's not as much like we're judging them. And I feel like there's a little bit of that there too. And I love what you said about how if we're talking about a book, if we're going through somebody else's words, it's like a lower barrier that we have to cross, because now we're not just presenting an idea and hoping that we're not being judged and we're trying to jump over that barrier. Now let's just talk about an idea. And that seems like, to me, like that's a lower barrier to cross, which makes a lot of sense. That's good. That's good. I love that. Okay. So we've addressed the fears, we've addressed the beliefs. And I think, no matter what it is that you're helping students to communicate their voice about, whether it's music, whether it's speaking in whatever form, or really, even if it's just trying to tackle content in class and trying to show up as themselves, any of that, helping them to address those fears and beliefs at the beginning, I think is super important. So with that established, the firm foundation is in place. Now let's talk about, now we can get to some of those strategies, some of those practices of how can we help our voice to show up in powerful ways. And so since Tatiana, since I kicked that one to you earlier, let me go ahead and bounce this one down to Tara. What are some of your best practices that seem to resonate with your students?
Okay, so one of my favorite assignments we're actually working on right now for careers in education. It's an introduction to the careers in education, and the students are exploring growth and development as learners. And the last 2 questions of their presentation include, what do you want to learn in this course? And then how can I help you achieve your learning objectives? So with that being said, it's already establishing a place for the students to use their voices and letting me know what they want to learn for this school year. So with that being said, I take all of their answers and I make sure that their voices are heard throughout the curriculum. So I literally take what they wrote and then I make sure I create lessons around it to address all of their needs. Another assignment that I really love, that I would love to share with you, is when I ask students to design their own school. So we're talking about what we're doing in school, but with this assignment, we're taking it a whole step back and having the students design a school from the ground up. They're talking about how many students are in the building, are there uniforms, what is the schedule like, is it 40 minutes, 42 minutes? And by putting in all those details, the students are being reflective about what they want to see in their own school. And we have conversations with administrators who come into our classroom and we talk about school improvement plans. And a couple years ago, my students, they were so adamant about making changes to the school. I had anticipated that they were going to say, oh, let's do like a lounge over here and we'll paint this part of the building. But my students were saying things like, we need to fix these bathrooms, or this door needs to be replaced. And so we had the head custodian come into our classroom. The students ran the whole entire conversation. And then we made changes in the school building. And it was really awesome. So to give the students the authentic experience, not just about writing it or presenting it in front of the class, but presenting to all stakeholders, whether it's an administrator or the Board of Education or anyone in our community. So I think that's really important to give the students the authentic learning experiences.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I love the choice within that and the, sort of freedom to go their own way. Because really, when you're talking about student voice, choice is a really big part of that. So that's one of the things I love about that activity. That was great. Tatiana, how about you? As far as, practices or techniques or ideas, strategies, any of that to help our voice come through in a big way?
Yes, definitely. We do lots of great ideas for that. And I just want to note that, Tara, what you talk about sounds so fun. I feel like students must love being around you. It feels like high energy, really team-based, really awesome activities. And when Tara was teaching the public speaking course at Rutgers before I did, and I remember she was one of the people that was willing to chat and talk and share some activities. So it's a nice collaboration as well. So I wanted to just give you a shout out for that too, Tara. Practical things that we do in the classroom, once fear and mindset is in the works, we will come back to inner critic and confidence building in a more in-depth way a little later on. But the next thing that I have them do is have some fun. I want my students to enjoy learning. I don't know at what point in our education school stopped being fun or why people believe that college should not be fun and enjoyable, but I am complete disagreement. I think that our education, our learning I think it's a blessing. I think it's awesome. And I think it should be fun. So I want to enjoy myself and I want my students to enjoy myself. And in those enjoyable activities, there is purpose and there is meaning. So we'll do something that I'll call random items. And when it was in an in-person class, I would bring a bunch of random items and in groups of 5 so that nobody feels alone. I have them pick a random item. Online, what I had them do in my synchronous class is pick an item that's not your cell phone that's close to you. And then, when it's your turn, you show it to the camera. So in groups of 5, whether in person or online, you start a story, and it's a little bit based off the actor's improvisation activity, yes, but it's not quite like that. It's just you start with your object and you have 30 seconds to start talking about your object. And then the next person has to connect their object to the person before them. Oh. And then that goes on for round 1. And then the next 5, I make it a little bit more complicated each round because the next round of 5, they think we're going to do the same thing as round 1. So the round 2 folks, I have them switch it up now because the people initially will just describe the object. That's typically what happens. Now I say, don't describe the object, start to build a story because the next skill I want them to start working on is the ability to story tell in an engaging way. And the reason I like the random items activity and set it up this way, and I give them no time, like 2 seconds to pick your item. I want them to bypass the fear because if we think too much about it, we'll start to get anxious. And I know, and I tell the whole class, everybody's going to do this. So it's not like only a few of you will be out front and center in the class. And then the next round You can't describe it. Start to build a story. And then the next round, I'll say, now say it, but change something about your voice. Same thing, but do something different with your voice. And then each round gets a little harder, a little harder, a little harder. And by the end of it, everybody's having fun, laughing, coming up with creative stuff. And then I'll ask them to debrief and go through that. So that's one of the practical ways where get them speaking, thinking on the fly with some improv exercise that also helps them get to know each other, build engagement. I mentioned bypassing the fear quickly and just being able to just talk in front of the class comfortably. And because we're sharing a laugh, I mean, you don't laugh with people you don't like. When we're all laughing together, it starts to build a sense of, okay, these are real people. They're not just some random person who's going to be in my class. And then every time we get together, there's that friendly sense, right? instead of us going into FOE mode, FOE mode, we go into the friend mode because we're with friends and we're learning and we're all growing together. So that's one of my practical activities that has so many really great and fun layers to it.
Yeah, you're right. And when it comes to I think the thing that I love about that the most is the part you were saying at the end, how, you said when we laugh together, we're not foes, we're friends. And so, you start to build that confidence. When I was teaching high school Spanish, one of the things that I learned about language learning is there's this thing called the affective filter. And the affective filter says that whenever we are nervous or anxious about how we're speaking and what we're saying, then we become, less than our optimal selves. And so, being able to break down that affective filter in many different ways, our brain doesn't perceive threat. And then all of a sudden, we become a little more free and a little bit better to do what we're doing. Right.
That's awesome, Matt. And in my lesson on audience analysis and audience engagement, we talk about, I learned this from Bill Hugterp, who owns a company called Own the Room right here in New Jersey. And I love his books. I love his online courses. I'm a huge fan of his. We actually connected on LinkedIn, but in his work, he talks about, as a speaker, we have to help audience members lower their filters. We can't force them to. Yeah. We just make it so that people will want to. So I love now what you're talking about, the term an effective filter. It's the same thing for teaching students that everybody has one. And it's our job as a speaker too, to help lower that by sending these friendly, interesting signals.
Mm-hmm. Right. Absolutely. Tara, did you have any other, I want to kind of wrap this up real quick with any other, activities or anything like that can help students?
Absolutely. So to circle back to the circle activity that I mentioned earlier, Tatiana reminded me about some of the improv activities that we actually do on the first day of class at Rutgers. And it goes with the idea of how you say something. So we do an activity where it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And so someone will pick a word, and then we go around the circle and we say the word in a different way as many times as we can until you can't think of a new way to say it. So each way you say it has a new meaning. Then the next activity that we do focuses on nonverbal communication. So it's not just what you say, it's how you say it, and then your expressions as well. So we do an activity that, I can't take credit for. I read it in a book several years ago called Pass the Face. I don't know if anyone has heard about it before, but it also brings humor and laughter to the classroom, like Tatiana said. And I'll start with a face, and then everyone makes the same face. And then the next person does a face, and then you pass the face. And then the next, it's really fun. I mean, we can practice together. Then the next activity is pass the gesture. So, you could wave to someone, you can, well, I guess winking would still be a face one. And then the next round is pass the body language or pass the posture. And so we think about the way that people stand. And so that already gets us into the conversation about our nonverbal communication, which is a big piece of public speaking. And it's just fun. We're laughing the whole entire time, but also connecting to the content and the objectives of the lesson.
Oh my goodness, this is fantastic. What was it? Pass the face, pass the gesture, pass the posture. These are fantastic. Tatiana, are you digging these as much as I am?
Oh my gosh, these are fantastic, because we've touched a little bit on the nonverbal skills and the mindset. These things are fantastic. They really work well, especially it's one thing to talk about an activity. It's another thing to actually have people do them. And when it comes to speaking, we've just got to do things. And that's what I tell people in our class. We are coming to class to do, because I do run the synchronous class as a flipped classroom as well. So I've recorded the content in advance. There's readings to be done. So when you come to class, it's about putting things into practice. And we've got to build up the verbal skills and the nonverbal together. So a couple of practical tips I want to share, even with anybody listening today who has to record on video. Eye contact face to face is one thing, right? Looking at the eyes of our audience members, imagining them as friends, because most people, they want us to do well. Like, people in the audience are usually rooting for the speaker to do a great job and to be interesting and to have some fun. They're not like, oh, I hope he totally crumbles, or that she just flops this whole thing. So we're just thinking about them as friends, making eye contact, panning the room, right, from right to left, making sure everybody's included. But that's not the same as eye contact on video. When we have to adjust for that, it means looking at the tiny little lens in the camera. It means I'm not actually looking at my screen where the people are. If I'm going to mimic eye contact in a recording, I've got to look at the camera lens, not at the screen. Here's me looking at the screen. Here's me looking into a black little circle. So we've got to make sure that we're mimicking eye contact. That's a practical skill that I teach my students too, when they're the difference between recording and being live with an audience. And then a nonverbal thing that we need to put into place and practice in both arenas is the way that we position our posture, and that we want to have open body language, right? Showing our front, because whenever we're guarded and we're protective, we're not showing ourselves. We want to make sure that we're fully open this way. And Vanessa Van Edwards from The Science of People, she taught me something that I share all the time, and that is that our hands are our trust indicators. Especially, we want to show open palm. Rather than pointing, we want to do something like this. You know, if and everybody's at a different level when it comes to hand gestures. Some people, like me, use them a little more. Other people use them a little less. And I don't try to change that naturalness in a student, but I do recommend that you practice open hand gestures, that your hands are never hidden. Even something like at an interview, always show your hands at a job interview. Don't hide them underneath the table. Even if you're nervous, show them. And then in a video, making sure that you're not cropped in so tight that you can't periodically show your hands to people. So those are a few other practical things that we need to know both in person and in online world as we're sharing our messages.
Oh my goodness. I'm so glad that you mentioned all of these. I've been preaching the whole look at the webcam thing since, as a practice during remote learning, because that really, with all of the video calls that kids have been doing, it's a great opportunity to start to build that habit. And there's a big difference, isn't there, between looking at the camera like this and looking at it like this. And whenever you see it down there, it's like, exactly what they're looking at. They're looking at themselves, they're watching themselves. And it's so hard because, see, what I want to do right now, because if you're watching this video right now, you know that all three of us on the screen right now are in a video call. And if we're doing our job, we're looking at you right here. But if I want to look at Tatiana's face while she talks, I have to look here. And if I want to look at Tara's face when she talks, I have to look here, which means that I'm no longer looking at you right here. And it's so hard to do, but if we want to make that eye contact and make that connection, that's crucial. So I'm so glad that you brought that up.
Matt, can I add something to that?
Yes, please.
I'm a photographer, videographer. Anytime a human being sees a photo, let's say there's 20 people in the photo, it doesn't matter even if it's your baby. As long as you're in the photo, you are going to look at yourself first. Yes. It's just the way that we're trained. And it's natural to want to look at the people that we're speaking to. So it's not like we could never look at the lens of the camera, but we have to be conscious and make an intentional decision to look at it. And I heard something in a webinar I listened to, and the person said, remember your friends behind the lens. And I know that's cheesy, but it actually helps me to remember. You can even if you have a class picture, you can put a class picture of your students or whoever, something behind the lens to remember. Look here from time to time too, to mimic that eye contact when you're recording video.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's fantastic. Very, very good. Very good practical tips here. This is great. I wanted to shift gears just a little bit. And I know that we've sort of touched on this a little bit, but I want to touch on it a little bit more explicitly. I kind of feel like, the fear and the beliefs thing that we were talking about before is one thing. But if we want to shift that to the other side of the spectrum, that becomes confidence. And, I was talking earlier about whenever you have that confidence, your affective filter lowers and you're able to produce at a higher level. And so if we want to build that confidence in our students' voices, and that can be, their physical voices, the way that they produce, audible sounds, or it could be the way that they show up in the message that they have and how confident they are in that. Let's just sort of camp on confidence for just a second, because I know, especially if you're Tara, if you're working with high school students, Tatiana, if you're working with college students, and Tara at the college level as well, that's a time where there are all of these feelings of, just for lack of a better term, not feeling as confident in yourself. You still have to build up that belief in yourself. What are some ways that you help instill that confidence in those students? So, Tara, I want to kick this one to you first. Do you have any ideas on that?
Yes, absolutely. So in the high school right now, it's very interesting. We are doing an assignment called Realizing My Powers. And again, I didn't create this assignment. It came from the curriculum guide. But Realizing My Powers is a one-page paper where students write all about their accomplishments. So they have one page to really talk about themselves. And lately, while they've been presenting their introduction to education plans, if anyone says anything about, oh, I don't like my presentation, or it's not as cute as this one, I remind them to realize your powers, right? To build confidence and to always speak kindly to ourselves, right?
Yes.
So that's just one activity. So be kind to yourself is really important. Also, to build confidence, I also think it's not only within the individual, it's within the whole entire team. So we have to create a safe learning environment for our students. And so that's where we're going to bring back some of those team building activities and the things that bring laughter and working together so that students can build confidence to present in front of their peers. With that, when we are presenting any formal presentation, of course, I always encourage the students to pick a topic that is really meaningful to them, something that they know that they could speak to easily. And then after they pick their topic, to really plan and prepare. So you write your outline or you write all of your notes, and then practice in front of your friends, your family members, in front of your mirror, record yourself, take notes. And so the confidence is certainly going to come with practice. And again, it's going to come from building that community with everyone around you.
Those are solid suggestions right there. Tatiana, how about you? What suggestions do you have?
I think number one is I teach students to verbalize what does confidence look like, because it's one of those big ideas that we know when we see it, but it's really hard to put into words. Mm-hmm. And as part of our conversation about giving and being able to give and receive feedback, we talk about confidence itself, and I'll have them define what does a confident speaker look like. Typically, the answers that will come are someone, the way that they stand, the way that they speak, the way their tone is. And a lot of times you'll find that a confident person comes across as relaxed, as enjoying themselves, having a good time, paying attention to the audience, having power and strength, energy in their voice. So we start to define what does a confident speaker look like. And I'll show them that these are behaviors that they can absolutely put into place for themselves. So practicing that, because I want them to remember that in the future, when the semester's over, they'll be able to recall successful experiences, times that they have had success in the classroom, and start to build a bank. And then one activity that I want to incorporate this semester that I did in my leadership class, I want to bring into public speaking, is doing a timeline of moments in your life where you've been successful at communicating a message. And obviously for not everyone, that's not going to be in a large group, but anytime you've been successful at communicating, because if you can communicate successfully to a small team, to a few, you can also do it to a larger group. So starting to build those moments where they're self-identifying, I've been successful at this in the past. Also, the next thing is getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, which I touched on before. That we just have to accept that it's even our talk today. I'm so excited. I'm so pumped, but I'm feeling all kinds of things in my body. And I just know that's going to happen. I know that's going to happen, and it's okay, because a big message I share is, what's bigger than your fear? We have to define that early on, and whatever that is, it doesn't matter that I'm afraid. It's okay. I can move forward anyway because I've got this mission in my life, which is sharing these kinds of conversations with people, and that's bigger than any fear that I have. And I want to be perfectly honest that, especially because I do photography and video, when people have all eyes on them, it's not just about a shaky voice or this. A lot of times people are their inner critic voice gets so strong in their mind about their physical body too, some aspect of the way that they look. So there's so many fears that come across with that. So working on the mindset, it makes me so happy to hear what you were sharing earlier about the curriculums in school now involving self-care and these be kind to yourself messages, because it's one of the biggest things I work on with students in college too, is helping them shift the mindset to be compassionate, to be kind, to take good care of themselves. So we incorporate this messaging in college. I can literally imagine a world where there is this continuity of voice empowerment from the preschool teachers all the way up to the PhD and beyond teachers, where we're all sharing this message to students that their voice matters.
Yeah.
And I think that we can show that by example in helping them know that we believe that our voice matters too, right? That we're able to demonstrate that, and that we want to hear what they have to say. We can't deliver that message, your voice matters, and then never let them speak in class, right? Even making it safe to make a mistake. It has to be okay that we mess up. And to me, a way that I do that is when I mess up, I let them know. In fact, I tell them in the beginning, by the way, everybody, I'm not a perfect professor. I'm going to make some mistakes. There are so many moving parts to this class. In fact, if you find a mistake, please let me know right away so I can take care of it. Making those kinds of shifts will then they gain confidence. They know I can come talk to my professor when I see something. I think this is a mistake. Let me let her know. I can be okay talking in class because it's okay that I'm not going to deliver a perfect message in this go round. So offering low stakes exercises, low stakes talks, which I do too in the beginning, that there are worth some points, but you get the full points if you do it. Doesn't matter how you perform. As long as you do it, you're good, so we can help get a baseline. And that's going to help build confidence as well. I put them, one last strategy that I do is all of our students in all of the public speaking program at Rutgers are divided into teams for the semester for a team project. But in addition to that, I put them in partnerships of 2. So they've got speaking partners for the whole semester. And that just helps make a class smaller, and identifying a person that they're going to get to know throughout the semester. What are their speaking goals? And I share with them that I'm one person and I'm here for them. But they've got all these other students in the class who can be there for them too, whom they can practice with, and even after college, right? Like right now, they may feel like young, powerless students, but who do you think is going to be running the world in a few years? It's going to be them. They're going to be directors. They're going to be able to connect each other into different positions. So start to build those relationships. And in the future, they've got a big presentation to prepare for. They've got all these other students who've also been a part of that class who can help them. They know the structure. They know how to organize a speech. They know what's going to work with an audience to engage them well. So a big message is, for me, I'm here for you, but you guys are also here for each other. And that's the power of our peers. So that's another way that I help build confidence in them, that they actually have a lot more power than they think they do.
I love the idea, Tatiana, how you were saying we have the team speeches, which of course I do the same thing, and then the partners throughout the semester. With that being said, one of my favorite things to notice in the classroom, and I pointed out on the first day, and then I pointed out on the last day of class when we have the face-to-face sections. On the first day, when you walk into the classroom, nobody knows each other in the college room. Everyone's quiet. They're sitting in rows. Nobody's speaking to anyone. They're looking at the syllabus or their computer. And I mention it and I say, think about this moment. Think about our nonverbal communication. Think about our verbal communication. Think about the sounds in this room. And then by the end of the semester, I promise you, I have had so many classes where I said the class was over, right? It was the last day. It was the last moment, the last activity, and no one left. No one wanted to leave the room because everyone became friends, because we built that genuine community. And we were just hanging out. Class was beyond done. I mean, I'm talking, it was Thursday night, 9 o'clock, or it was Saturday morning at 1:20 and no one wanted to leave, which is such a stark difference from that first day when people didn't know each other. So again, that community building, having the partners is a really great idea. I love the team speeches. Also in the public speaking class that Tatiana and I both teach, they have a peer introduction speech. And so that's another way to speak about someone else before speaking about yourself to gain those experiences, but just to continue to build these relationships, because that's one of the most important things in public speaking.
Yeah. I'm sort of surprised. I guess I shouldn't be, but I'm sort of surprised at how much we keep coming back in this conversation to community, to trust in each other, to building that environment where you feel safe. And I kind of expected this conversation to be more of like the nuts and bolts of optimizing your voice. And it has come back to really different things. And I'm not disappointed in that at all. I think that it's fascinating. I think it's very telling that the conversation keeps coming back to this instead of make sure you stand up tall, make sure that you have good posture, make sure that you project your voice. Like, there's a lot more to it than just those things. And I'm really glad that it went in that direction. So as we start to kind of wrap this up a little bit, there's one question that I've asked everyone across the entire summit. And I think that our conversation here is starting to culminate to this point. I think this is going to be a really good culminating question that we can ask at the very end. And so it's just a really simple question that I'll ask the both of you. And some people have had little short, pithy answers to it, and some people have described it just a little bit longer. So I'm very curious to see how this works out with the both of you. And so here's the big question. What can we do to help students use their voices to change the world? And the conversations that the three of us have had leading up to this, I know that this is a passion for both of you. So I'm curious to see what your answers are on that. So Tatiana, do you want to take that one first?
Sure. Immediately, the thought that popped in my mind is helping them to believe, to truly believe, not just know it logically in their head, but to truly believe that their voice matters. Because I think that if a person can believe that, they will make change. Change will happen. So as long as they can believe that in here and get it in here and gain the skills, because even though we didn't focus on the practical steps, those are important too, because you can be the most amazing human being in the most trusting relationships. If you're monotone the whole time, people probably aren't going to be excited about listening to you. So those things are important too. But if we can truly help students believe that their voice matters, and in fact, I'll add that they matter, then they will undoubtedly have the skills and the tools to be able to make change in whatever area they decide to pursue in their careers or in their studies. That's what I think.
That's fantastic. I love that. Tara, how about you? What can we do to help students use their voices to change the world?
My short answer is that we have to continue to empower our students. That is giving them the opportunities to use their voice. That is empowering their speech and supporting any endeavor that they have so that they have the confidence to continue to go out and to change the world.
I love that. That's fantastic. Empower students, give them opportunities to use their voices. Very well said. Oh, this has been the best conversation. This has been, I seem to be saying that about all of them, but I don't care. They're all great. They're all fantastic. I've loved all of them, and I've definitely loved this one. I so appreciate the expertise and the honesty and the sort of tactics that you both have shared in this session. So as we wrap this up real quick, if someone wants to go further, if they want to learn more from you or connect with you or, whatever, is there anything, like social media or a website or, anything like that you can share that, if they want to continue the conversation a little more? Tara, do you want to take that first?
Absolutely. Everyone can find me on Twitter at Dr. Tara Skiba. So Dr. DrTaraSkiba, or you can email me at coachtaraj@gmail.com.
CoachTaraJ@gmail.com. And I'll put that up on the screen there. Okay, very good. Tatiana, how about you?
Okay, I've got a few places too. Twitter, which I am recently become a part of the Twitter world, which is very exciting. I think it's very cool. I love education content on there. My Twitter handle is Tatiana_teaches, because somebody already had Tatiana teaches. I was so shocked, but it's Tatiana_teaches. And I'm sure the other Tatiana who teaches is great too. And then my LinkedIn is Hello Tatiana Rodriguez. And I want to share this really exciting project, Matt, if I could, that I'm working on, which the creative ideas, they pop into my head. And I had this idea to create a student interview series around leadership, public speaking, self-care, and how these things apply to our lives. And I sent out an email to my students, just one. Over 40 students said they were willing to do an interview with me.
Wow.
To focus on one concept. At the end of the day, each video is only going to be 16 minutes long. So they're going to be concise, compact messaging. But I felt so strongly that I needed to help empower student voices. I think Tara and I share the same philosophies when it comes to teaching and empowering students in these ways. Over 20 students have already filmed it. I'm actually bottlenecked in editing, but it is all going to be on a YouTube channel. So I'll be sure to post that in my social media content as soon as that's ready to go. And that's anybody who's interested in public speaking can benefit from these, because there's little lessons in it. There's also practical lessons that I put in that are for my students. Those are 5 to 10 minutes long. So that's already on the YouTube channel. And I think I shared that link with you at some point, Matt. It's just one of those really long ones that I can't actually ever remember for YouTube. But the content is on there already. The videos are coming soon. And then the website will be running next month, which is TatianaTeaches.com. I'll be putting a lot of these practical, also just fundamental emotional beliefs about uplifting our voices.
You didn't get the Twitter handle, but you got the domain name, TatianaTeaches.com.
Exactly.
Excellent. And I will say, with that YouTube channel, we will get that onto the speaker page here of the summit. So you don't have to go dig for it or anything. We'll have a link for it right there. So if you're on the summit, then you can go check that out. So,
awesome.
Oh my goodness, this has been fantastic. Tatiana and Tara, thank you again so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Matt, you're an amazing human being, and I feel so lucky that Tara and I got this opportunity to be here today. With the content you share, what you do, I think you're one of those like-minded people like us, where we want to connect, we want to share, we want to offer value to the world and help make life better for others. And it's such an honor to be here. Really, thank you.
I'll quit it. You're making me blush. No, well, thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you for watching and for being a part of the Soundtrap Education Summit. And we will see you on the next video. Take care.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.